Joining us, chief U.S. commentator for the Financial Times, Ed Luce, senior executive editor of Bloomberg Opinion, and MS Now political analyst Tim O'Brien. New York Times chief White House correspondent and MS Now contributor Peter Baker, and policy editor at The Bulwark and host of the Mona Charen Show podcast. Mona Charen, everybody welcome. Ed, just walk me through top-line numbers on this financial disclosure and just how much money Donald Trump has made since he retook the White House.
Well, he's made quadruple, at the very minimum, quadruple in 2025 what he made in 2024. In terms of the breakdown, crypto is a vast share of it, at least 500 million. The sale to the Abu Dhabi, the Emirati Sovereign Wealth Fund, of his stake in that World Liberty Financial venture that's co-owned by his sons and by Steve Witkoff's son. But then, of course, this meme coin, $Trump, that he launched on January the 17th, has made him hundreds of millions. Melania also launched one, the price of which has nosedived since Trump took all those winnings. And it makes you think back to Trump University and stuff that's been going on for decades. It's really preying on the gullible and making a lot of money out of them. And, I think Tim has got decades worth of experience of observing this. But there's no real parallel, not just in American history, but in any sort of genuine democracy to what we're seeing now. It is the mother of all kleptocratic administrations.
No, we've never seen anything like this, not even close. I mean, to even try to make a comparison is laughable at this point. Peter Baker, when the White House is asked about this, their statement doesn't make any sense. They say the president doesn't have any conflict of interest, but at the same time, he's proud to make this the crypto capital of the world. You cannot be proud to make this the crypto capital of the world when and then say there's no conflict when you yourself are making $100 or $1.4 billion in crypto. I mean, it's an easy comparison to make when you look at something that's not as complicated as crypto. If you were saying washing machines or you were saying steel, I mean, this is the sort of thing that defines conflict of interest.
Oh, absolutely. Look, he was the one who originally said, by the way, that the whole crypto thing was a scam and that it should be regulated. And then suddenly he got into the business, made a lot of money, and now he doesn't want to regulate it in the same way. It's beyond conflict of interest. We've never seen it. We just said anything like it. The Trumps made an awful lot about Hunter Biden's, financial interests in foreign firms during his father's vice presidency and presidency. That was penny ante by comparison. Even if you think that Hunter Biden did things that are wrong, it was a few $1 million. Here we're talking about hundreds and hundreds of millions adding up potentially to billions of dollars, not just for the president, but for his family and his friend's family. I mean, if there's so many different examples of it, just one small example. He goes to dinner in the transition before taking office with Jeff Bezos and his wife, Melania Trump. And Melania Trump is trying to sell a documentary, which is basically just a propaganda film about how great she is. And Bezos says, I'll buy it. Basically, he buys it for $40 million, $28 million of which has been reported to go directly into the First Lady's pocket. Why does Jeff Bezos have an interest in this? What would the conflict of interest be? Well, he gets federal contracts for his rocket company, and the postal rates that are pretty important to his Amazon company are the kind of thing that the president targeted in his first term, but not so much in his second term. So every time you look around the corner, you're seeing some example where the president's personal financial interests, where his families, where his friends and their families seem to overlap with decisions that are being made or could be made by him and his administration.
You're buying favorability, you're buying access when it comes to the meme coin, which, again, you can't do anything with. And as Ed said, the value of which has dropped. Undoubtedly, there are folks that are buying it to try to get closer to the president. And there were two different galas that he held where the owner of the most of those coins was, the owners of them would be invited to the gala and the tiers of access, depending on how much you bought. But Tim, as Ed pointed out, there's got to be some regular folks in there who bought it as well and probably bought it pretty high and now have suffered major losses.
Just like the people who bought stock in Trump Media, just like his bankers who bankrolled his casinos years ago, or bondholders who bankrolled his casinos, or banks that loaned to his hotels. across the United States. There's a long track record of Donald Trump leading people by their noses with a story and little exposure of his own, and getting bailed out when he's failed by his family money or overly forgiving banks, and basically walking and whistling all the way to the bank. The thing that's really different now, your example of it's like owning Maytag and saying you want to make the United States a washing machine capital of the world. The reality is washing machines do something. There is no good use case right now for crypto, other than the most popular use has been for illicit transactions. The only reason that Trump's crypto holdings have exploded in value is because he's president, because he is proximate to the regulatory apparatus and the legal structures that put the federal government's good housekeeping seal of approval behind a product that is essentially a poker chip. And he's reaped billions of dollars off of that. So that is obviously a problem. Secondly, at least a washing machine would be good for the United States as a product someone could use. Right now, there's no demonstrated value in this. Secondly, there are massive national security problems in this. I think, as either Ed or Peter pointed out, it is an easy, and you might have, Kate, it's an easy avenue now for foreign interests to bribe the president of the United States by either investing in his crypto companies or buying his tokens. And we have Exhibit A in my mind of this is Sheikh Zayed, the spy master of the UAE, a powerful politician in that Gulf state, invested several $100 million in the Trump's crypto enterprises shortly after Trump was inaugurated. And shortly thereafter, Trump lifted a long-standing ban on the exports of highly sensitive computer chips, semiconductor chips, to the UAE. The Biden administration had banned those exports on national security grounds. It is such a clear quid pro quo. So this goes beyond simple graft and simple grifting, which it is, but it's really putting the United States' global interests at risk simply so Donald Trump can massively pad his wallet.
Is it just semantics, Mona? Isn't this essentially the president coming out and saying, if you want access to me or you want favorable treatment by my government, just pay me. Put money in my pocket.
It is as simple as that. And, Katie, if it were that alone, it would be an unbelievable disgrace, a shame, and a horror. But we have something beyond that, I'm afraid. Yes, he is enriching himself at an unprecedented rate that shames us before the world. But in addition, he is saying that pardons are for sale. We have innumerable examples of people who have put money in his pocket or contributed to his campaign fund and then seen their relatives be pardoned. We have also seen the corruption of the SEC. So high rollers have donated huge amounts to Trump's campaigns and various projects, including the ballroom and other things, and they have had SEC enforcement actions withdrawn. We have seen as Tim was just mentioning, regarding the chips going to the UAE. Well, the reason that the Biden administration wanted to withhold those high-end chips from UAE was because they were afraid they would sell them to China. And this is very important in terms of the development of AI. And so there is a national security angle here as well. And I'm afraid that the lesson to be taken from what we have seen in this first part of the second Trump years is that everything, including national security, is for sale.